What's up guys, tasty late upload chunks here, and next week's video is probably going to be talking about Overwatch 2 Season 11. Don't worry, we're not going all the way back to playing Overwatch consistently. However, I do want to give it a chance with this new season because there are a lot of things I have specifically asked for in it. Speaking of not Overwatch, the Xbox Game Showcase of 2024 happened just like a bit over a week ago. I want to go through and check out every single game that showed up in this, and we're going to rank them, not based on how good I think they'll be, but on how likely their game studio is to be shut down for their product. See, when you see a game on this that is a nothing IP that is made by Xbox Game Studios that looks sick as shit, it will die. So here's the tier list. At the top of the list, we have no layoffs. This is your best case scenario when working with Xbox Game Studios. Next tier down, we have layoffs. This is the second best outcome you can hope for with Microsoft. Then, second to the bottom, we have studio closure. See, the reason why this one isn't at the bottom is because there is a chance a studio puts out a real stinker and they get closed, which, you know, not that big of a deal. But then we have the bottom tier, which is game is amazing, but studio is closed anyways. This is something that I didn't know was a thing, except for the fact that Xbox seems to be the only studio out there that consistently does this one. Alright, now let's go through the actual presentation. Black Ops 6, my bet is no layoffs. The layoffs already happened. It's Call of Duty, it's gonna make money. Second off, it's Treyarch, it's gonna make money. Third off, it's the most developed COD game in the last few years, so people are gonna sing its praises and it's gonna make money. Alright, so for Doom the Dark Ages, I'm gonna say no layoffs. As far as I know, this is the first Doom game without Mick Gordon, but I think the vast majority of Doom players don't even really know about that. As far as Doom as a prominent IP, 2016 did really well. Yeah, no, Doom Eternal made a shitload of money. I think actually Call of Duty is probably more likely to have layoffs than Doom is. In-game footage, my ass, this is just a CGI cutscene. Alright, State of Decay 3. See, the thing about the State of Decay games is someone has to be buying these things, because they've made 3 of them. Apparently, State of Decay 2 sold really well. I mean, to be fair, it is launching in May of 2018. That's a pretty dry month. We'll put State of Decay 3 in layoffs. It depends on the budget. I mean, I didn't know State of Decay really put up numbers like that. It's also not a super high stakes IP, so I think it'll probably do fine. Next up, we got Dragon Age Veilguard. Now, this one isn't technically an Xbox studio, but we are talking about EA, so the exact same rules apply. Now, it's BioWare, so the studio closing is basically completely off the table. However, if we look at the most recent installments from BioWare, I mean, I still remember Mass Effect Andromeda. Who knows? Maybe they've learned. Maybe they've gotten better. But when I see EA and BioWare teaming up to make another RPG, my butthole puckers a little. I do think there's a good chance that this game will have like a huge anti-woke movement against it. You can basically bet your ass that it'll have like some form of queer characters or romance options in the game that are going to make a big greasy guys who really like to scream about like politics in video games are gonna get very upset about it, which will be hilarious to see. But it's an EA title, so layoffs basically guaranteed. There's a new Starfield expansion. I mean, there's a Fallout 6 expansion too. These both back to back. Jeez, just some crap. How is it gonna take them months on end to let you play as a ghoul in this game? I swear there's a mod for every Fallout that lets you do that. Anyways, we're not ranking these based on how good the game will be. We're ranking it based on how likely Microsoft is to start firing people or closing the studio. I think Bethesda's in the clear. I mean, look at these. These are very low profile things. We got basically 2 DLCs launching. They're pretty much guaranteed to make a decent chunk of money back. Most of the hard work of building the game's already done. Alright, now we're getting into that good shit. Expedition 33. This game looks very experimental, very stylish, not a recognizable IP. It also just kind of generally looks interesting. regardless of if the game is good or not, it definitely has the style. I think this game looks sick enough that I'm gonna put it in game is amazing, but studio is closed anyways. Because the thing is, this isn't gonna do those Game Pass numbers. See, when you see a game on this that is a nothing IP, that is made by Xbox Game Studios, that looks sick as shit, it will die. Yeah, no, these guys are finished. Sandfall and Kepler, y'all best start looking for other employment opportunities and put this shit on your resume, because I don't see you making it 2 years, bud. South of Midnight. See, whenever there's these experimental ones, that's when you start going, oh no. This tries to do like an almost like animation style from like a movie or something, where the character is rendered in like less frames than the world. I fucking hate when games do this. It makes it look terrible. It just looks like the game is lagging. I get it's a stylistic choice, but it is like really distracting. This game has definitely got like the style to be a good game. That being said, this is actual gameplay we're looking at, and it's kind of nothing. Yeah, I'm gonna be real. I do not see this game doing the numbers it would need to keep this studio alive. Compulsion Games, not looking great for you. I'm gonna put this one in studio closure. I mean, like, the game doesn't look that good. It's got a very distracting animation style that I think will be a major turnoff for most consumers. And I don't see this game selling Game Pass subscriptions, just like I don't see this one. Now, there is a chance this game is amazing, but if this game is amazing, my bet is it goes from here to here. Next up, we got World of Warcraft: The War Within. I mean, all this has to do is tie in a World of Warcraft subscription to Game Pass, and it will actually start moving Game Pass sales pretty egregiously. It will make so much money if they do that. World of Warcraft, I think that's probably a guaranteed no layoffs. Next up, we got Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater Remake. God, I sure hope they don't make this game political, is what I'd say if I had roaches in my house. All right, now Metal Gear Solid 3 is not an Xbox IP. However, that being said, it's a Konami product without Kojima. That doesn't give me a lot of confidence in the quality of the product. It doesn't have the involvement of its main creator, probably impacting sales at least a decent amount. That being said, I see layoffs or no layoffs as the only options, and without Kojima involved, I lean towards layoffs. Sea of Thieves Season 13, I'm gonna be real. Who cares? Flintlock: The Siege of Dawn, their website don't work. I will say this is a pretty sick trailer by a studio that seems to know what they're doing. Layoffs. This game is coming out about a month after the new Elden Ring DLC. Now, the Elden Ring DLC could be a wave in popularity for Souls and Souls-like games. However, releasing a mere month after that, not a great plan. I think most people will either still be caught up in playing Elden Ring or a little bit too early to hop into a new Souls-like at that time. I mean, I don't think the studio's gonna close by any means, but I'd be amazed if they don't take a massive hit for trying to launch that close to that game. First up, we got Xbox RTS. Yeah, I'ma be real. Studio closure. I don't see this game making it that far. Next up, we have Perfect Dark. So we got Crystal Dynamics on deck here. A very like Mirror's Edge traversal system going on. Not to mention, Perfect Dark is a bit of like a classic Xbox IP, so I feel like they might actually put some weight behind it. I don't know how to feel about this one. Crystal Dynamics on the one hand, not exactly pumping out a lot of bangers money-wise, but Perfect Dark definitely has the weight behind it to actually be able to do some damage. I'm gonna put it in layoffs. I bet it'll do good, but not good enough to actually like justify them putting more money behind this project. I bet it doesn't get advertised as much as it should, or I could be wrong and this could be a heavy hitter. Who knows? But if it is a heavy hitter, I'd still expect layoffs. Diablo IV. That shoe is just nasty. No layoffs. See, the problem with the games up here is they've kind of ruined this whole thing because they already had their layoffs. So I give them about 2 years before we see more layoffs, which disqualifies them from getting put on the layoffs list here, because this is just looking at the next year or two. Next up, we got Fable. This game's been getting advertised for like 10 fucking years now. Fable is going thoroughly in a studio closure. I think this game has been a train wreck, and I think that when it launches, it probably won't be that good. It probably won't sell that well, even if it is good, and I don't see them making any more Fables. Next up we got Fragpunk. What the fuck is this? Oh, this looks sick. 5v5 hero shooter. Oh, this shit's owned by NetEase. That's why this shit looks exactly like Rivals. It's a NetEase product. It's gonna make money. If it doesn't make money, they'll just absorb the developers to go work on another game. They're not gonna lay them off. Winter Burrow. I mean, it's not expensive enough looking to close an entire studio over. I'll put it in no layoffs. Winter Burrow is probably fine. I mean, I doubt it's gonna move many consoles or whatever, but it's not gonna lose money. Mixtape. Yeah, Mixtape is going in great game, but studio is closed. See, these games don't really look like they've got the sauce. These two look like they could have the sauce. But realistically, it doesn't matter if it's a great game or a terrible game. All 5 of these are going to the same place. So when I see the ones that look more creative and cool, I immediately think studio is closing. Microsoft Flight Sim 2024? I mean, truly, if you care about flight sims, you'll probably buy this. If you don't care about flight sims, you won't care. It might be great, it might be terrible. Regardless, I'm not the person to look to for information on this. Flight sim, it's probably fine. Bethesda released 3 separate expansion or DLC trailers in this entire presentation. Elder Scrolls, no layoffs, they already happened. They're making a new Life is Strange. I mean, it's a Square Enix title. So regardless of how that goes, Xbox has no involvement in layoffs, aside from if they don't market the game. Plus, I feel like Square Enix is probably doing just fine. So I bet no layoffs. Indiana Jones game. I mean, we got Bethesda and Machine Games working on an Indiana Jones title. Wolfenstein 2 was basically just a movie anyways. I feel like that game will basically guaranteed make money, assuming it's half decent. If it's not half decent, it will only make a lot of money as opposed to fuckloads of money. Next up, we have something called Mecca Break. I mean, this is certainly one of the video games of all time. Oh my god, the Mecca broke. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that's a studio that gets shut down. Next up, we got Wu Chang Fallen Feathers, and I just gotta say, how many fucking Souls-likes are we gonna release this year? The Wu Chang Fallen Feathers, I'm saying studio closure. At minimum layoffs, but like, we already got Elden Ring coming out. And then just in this series of trailers, we have Flintlock, The Siege of Dawn, which looked sick as hell. Compared to that, this looks about as generic as a Souls-like could get. I mean, I guess it is coming out in 2025, so I don't know, maybe it does okay. Next up, we got Avowed. I mean, this is by Obsidian, so it's probably going to be pretty quality. Starfield blew ass, so maybe Avowed just, like, absolutely clears in, like, late fall. See, I actually see that being a pretty solid seller. I think that's easy, no layoffs. Actually, in fact, I think it might have the opposite effect. I think it might lead to layoffs in Bethesda if it does well. Rebellion, ooh, already not looking great for layoffs. Boy, is Fallout in it. British. Dude, Bethesda's sitting here with their dick in their hands while every other company releases Bethesda games for them. And there's a pretty good chance they're higher quality. British Fallout and Fungus Skyrim back to back? This is just a day in Birmingham, isn't it? Atom Fall by Rebellion? I mean, British Fallout. Isn't that just living in the UK? You know, here's the thing. I think there's probably a lot of people looking for a new Fallout-like game. And while I have heard Fallout 76 isn't that bad now, I do think Atom Fall could probably scoop up some players. I mean, it depends if there's still this much hype in 2025 for a game like this. Probably depends on whether or not the game is good. Regardless of if the game is good, I'd bet layoffs are in the future. Assassin's Creed Shadows. I didn't even know there was an Assassin's Creed game coming out this year set in Japan until I saw people screaming about it on Twitter. I think this game makes a shitload of money. Assassin's Creed Shadows and just Assassin's Creed at large isn't owned by Xbox, so it's not really a case of whether or not Microsoft will shut them down. Ubisoft isn't going to close on the recent Assassin's Creed game, because Assassin's Creed makes Ubisoft probably the most money out of all of their IPs. It's probably also not going to be very good because it's a Ubisoft game, not because it's woke or whatever, just because it'll probably have predatory spending practices in it and a bunch of crazy overpriced DLCs and bundles and shit, because it's a surefire success plan. And I worry that because of all of those morons, the actual valid criticism of Ubisoft's business practices will probably end up drowned out. This game isn't going to lead to anyone getting laid off, but it should lead to the people in charge of monetization of Ubisoft games and the crunch of their developers getting laid off because they are objectively evil people. However, playing as Yasuke and a ninja lady, if the game is good, I'm all here for it. Because concept-wise, that is raw as fuck. Next up, we got Stalker 2. Stalker 2 is made in Ukraine. Yeah, nah, Microsoft ain't doing shit about this game. I put Stalker 2 in no layoffs. They're fine. They're good. I would bet that the Ukrainian developers are safe from getting laid off, just because it would be an absolute shitstorm for Xbox if they laid them off. I really do wish these devs the best, but honestly, I also wouldn't be surprised if Xbox just decides to be the biggest assholes on the planet and fire a bunch of Ukrainian developers that made a game for their platform in the middle of wartime just to be dickheads because it didn't squeeze out enough profit. Finally rounding this whole thing off, we got Gears of War. I mean, does anyone even really care about Gears of War anymore? It's a Gears of War prequel, and it's very heavily playing on nostalgia and stuff. I don't know, maybe it could be like a soft reboot to the series where like they can move forward, but I kind of feel like Gears of War is a bit of a early 2000s time capsule, you know? If Gears 5 was pushing Game Pass like that, I feel like a Gears of War prequel where there's like actual fan service and stuff behind it probably could bite off some of the nostalgia and do pretty alright. Not to mention, if it's an actual good game and introducing people to the Gears IP, it could do well. So let's do a quick final check. This is where all the placements ended up. This is my initial gut feeling, but let's reflect a bit more on it. Avowed looks way too cool for Microsoft to not fuck it up somehow. Layoffs. However, counterpoint, if Avowed does well, I see some layoffs for the Elder Scrolls crew. So to find the good middle ground, we're going to put them all in no layoffs for now. I feel like State of Decay 3 will kind of be a bit of a jumping the shark point where the budget will probably end up too high and the game itself might not sell as well. Metal Gear Solid, I think, will underperform quality-wise, and because of that, I think Konami will probably end up firing a lot of the devs. That or sending them to go work on the gambling machines. Flintlock: The Siege of Dawn looks like one of the most promising Souls-likes that's coming out. However, that being said, it's releasing a month after Elden Ring, so best case scenario, it's gonna have poor performance and probably layoffs. Perfect Dark looks cool, but I think it's also been in development hell. Best case scenario, layoffs. Atomfall looks good, and I mean, Fallout craze is kinda all over the place, so if people are still interested in Fallout come 2025, I can see this game actually doing quite good. It's also got a bit of a unique flair being the UK. South of Midnight looks really janky, but it's mostly because of the animation style. However, I think most people will probably have an adverse reaction to the animation style and the bit more goofy musical nature to it. The gameplay they showed off looked about as bare bones as it could get. It looks very style over substance, and even if it is really good, those are the markings of a studio that ends up closed down because Xbox likes cool ideas until they don't make $1 quadrillion and they shut down the studio. Age of Mythology is a real-time strategy game released by Xbox. Do we need to talk about what happened to Creative Assembly? Do we need to talk about Ensemble Studios? If Xbox asks your studio to make an RTS for its platform, run! At least if you're owned by Xbox. Also, just if most big companies ask you to make an RTS that aren't like Games Workshop or something, or like the Civilization devs, run. They will close your studio. Fable's been in development hell for ages. I don't see it doing well. Correction, I see the game doing well in terms of hype, but if the game is a stinker at launch, I see it tanking the whole studio and shutting them down. Mecca Break just kind of feels like a tax write-off. I don't know, it looks kind of cool, but at the same time, I don't see anything about it that's like, holy shit, this is awesome. It could be really cool, but there's very little that's like actually hype about this game, so I don't think it has the hype value going for it, at least in my opinion. But I'm also not a huge Mecca fan, so basically just ignore everything I've said about this game, except for this. There's a good chance that Xbox shuts down the studio because they're assholes. So even if the game is awesome and I was wrong about my first impressions for it, that won't matter to Daddy Microsoft. He'll probably fucking kill the studio anyways. The Fallen Feathers Wu-Chang game, I mean, it's not coming out a month after Elden Ring, so I could be wrong about Flintlock outperforming this game. However, that being said, this is like the most generic Souls-like I've ever seen in my life. It's got kind of a cool like Bloodborne / Sekiro aesthetic going to it, but nothing about it I looked at was like, yo, that's sick. At least Flintlock had a thick ass trailer and like some really cool music. Speaking of really cool music, Mixtape looked sick as hell in terms of being like very stylish and colorful. Good soundtrack, lots of fun. Now this game is like a guaranteed studio closure one right here. My bet is they didn't lay off people from this studio because they were working on this game. But my bet is once this game launches, it gets no marketing, probably ends up with very few players or Game Pass subscriptions to play it. I'd imagine probably gets decent to good reviews, and then Microsoft shuts down the studio because that's what they do. Expedition 33 also gave off the visual style of like, oh, a lot of care was put into this, which tells me Microsoft will kill the studio. And yeah, that's my final thoughts on all these games. Oh, and while we're at it, it's fucking hilarious that the Winter Burrow game gets a spotlight in this game showcase, as well as Fragpunk, a NetEase hero shooter game. Overwatch didn't even get a trailer, and they had a trailer that was ready to launch within a week. That tells me that that game, honest to God, Team 4 might be getting shut down soon. That's what that tells me. That tells me that Overwatch might be fucked. So let me know your predictions down below in the comments. Which of these studios make it to 2025? Which of these studios make it to 2026? And remember, this is just my predictions for ones that make it through 2026. All these studios could very well be fucked past that. We'll see you next week when we're talking about Overwatch, probably.
Ain't nothing like a funky beat.